Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Eerie, New Mexico. If that doesn't capture your attention, what can? Eerie, New Mexico. It's about phenomenon that we cannot describe or cannot know the actual basis of. Author John de Aragon has found out what is so eerie about our state, and he has it in his book. And he reminded me that, if you recall, this summer, Congress wants to know not only what is eerie about New Mexico, but across the world, what are these flying objects that we cannot identify? What are these alien visitations all about? Well, even before Congress said, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to try to describe all these things, John de Aragon did this in his book. So please stay with us as we find out this kind of undescribed or unknown phenomenon that happens here in our state, dating back centuries and just as recent as this century. So please stay with us. We'll be back with John de Aragon right after this.
Hey America, now there's a place where we can join our voice, Real America's Voice. Real America's Voice is coming to a town near you with a grassroots approach, bringing the real voice of America together. Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country, and soon you could be part of that change. Download the Real America's Voice app and join other Americans just like you across the country, coming together for real change.
Strange objects, unexplained sightings, unsolved mysteries. You've heard about it in the news. You've heard about it from your neighbors. You've seen it yourself, perhaps, in the skies over New Mexico. One thing we're known about here in New Mexico, one of many things, is how clear our skies are, how bright our stars are. But what else is up there? New Mexicans have seen things for centuries, as in this book by John de Aragon. Welcome back to our program, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me too.
You've written 33 books, author of 33 books, all with fantastic covers too, with your press, the History Press. Mm-hmm. Why did you come up with this idea, Eerie, New Mexico?
Because I grew up hearing stories that were told by my mother and my dad. And one of the stories that they told were about these bolas de lumbre, balls of fire, that translates into English. And that was quite an eerie story because my mother...
It was an eerie story.
Yes,
yeah?
Because my mother said that we passed through an area of Las Vegas, New Mexico, on South Pacific Street, and she pointed out to a hill and the countryside, and she said, you know that area right there? I said, yes. And she said, look at that. That's where witches turn themselves into balls of fire and they go out dancing in the night. So I heard that that was a legend that was prevalent in northern New Mexico and other areas among the Hispanic myths, that witches transform themselves into balls of fire. So I wrote about that in one of my books. But the other thing that caught my attention was that my dad told me that if I ever saw a ball of fire, that to follow it. And they described it like a basketball-sized luminous object. And if I ever saw anything like that, to be sure to follow it because it would lead me to a treasure. And
lead you to a what?
To a treasure. And he said that he saw one time, and he followed it, and he looked to see where we would go down into the ground, and he went to that spot and used a shovel and dug, but he didn't find anything. And another interesting story was that my dad was a traveling salesman. He went to all. What I loved is that we got to go to all the little villages and towns, and my dad had a lot of friends in those places, and so that was part of the culture that I grew up. That's how sociable people were, and how inviting, and they would invite us in to eat and share their stories. So one told my dad about a place that he had seen, one of those luminous objects. That's balls of fire. And then he followed it, and then it went down into this area, and he knew exactly where it was at. And my dad said, could you take me with her? He had bought a metal detector, but it was back in the 1950s. So it was a contraption that he wanted to take over there to see if he could find some treasure buried there. Anyway, I remember that we went to that isolated area, and my dad took some shovels, and so he and his friends started digging into the ground, and I was just a little kid. I just sat there watching them digging, and they kept digging further because the gentleman kept on telling my dad, "Well, there's got to be a treasure here because here's where it went down," and so they dug, sought like 6 feet into the ground. Then they started hitting some rocks. They wound up finding these little stones that looked like crosses with that had actual garnets on them, and they were tossing them to the side because they were looking for the actual treasure, a treasure chest. They didn't realize that they had found a treasure, and it was those stones that sell for $30 a piece now. And they were picking them up and tossing them to the side, and I had remembered it.
You're saying they're stones with garnets, with gems in them?
They are shaped in this naturally like a cross, and they're about that size, But anyway, they actually sell them now on the internet. I forget what they're called.
They sell on the internet now.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by ball of fire? What's a ball of fire?
A ball of fire, actually.
A tumbling. I'm just thinking it's
Actually,
a tumbleweed that caught on fire that's tumbling.
I actually
around.
got to see one on my own. I was in my home in Las Vegas, and it was at night, and this luminous orb went into the living room. And I was in the kitchen, and when I saw it, and it was moving along very slowly, and it's a bright light. It was about basketball size. It was a bright light, but not a blinding light. It was just luminous, and I just stayed studying it, and it moved along slowly and went right through the wall, and disappeared. So I went running outside to see if I could see it going along, but I couldn't see it anywhere. But so that stayed in my mind. I got to see one of those twice. I had another experience with one, but one much larger. And then
What was that experience?
Here in Albuquerque, at the Bosque.
You're out hiking in the Bosque?
It was in my home, but looking out the window, and then I saw it among the trees. But when I started, so then I actually got to see them. And then when I did my research for my book, I found out that they claim that 3% of the world population has actually experienced them and seen them. And then I found out that Air Force pilots, while they were flying, even during World War II, they would see these luminous orbs flying next to their aircraft. And so these are experiences that were written down and told by the pilots themselves. And then as I did more research, then I found out that conventional aircraft, the commercial aircraft pilots, they have seen them. And they've written about their experiences. But nobody believes it, because the skeptics say that now scientists admit that they do exist, but they have no explanation as to how they appear, that they do exist. If you look under the subject of balls of fire, they also call them St. Elmo's fire. They have different titles for them. So that's pretty interesting. That was the information that I got from my book, that I included in my book. But they know they exist, that they try to come up with ideas as to what they are.
I was thinking of reflection, and light is reflection. When you mentioned your home, I'm thinking, there's a car driving down the street with its headlights going through the living room.
There's no car in the Bosque. But they have said that some have claimed that they're pea-sized, and some are huge. Most of the sightings have been described as basketball size, like the one that I saw. But the scientists have been trying to reproduce in labs that type of phenomenon or phenomena to prove how they come about. But the scientists have said that the only time that they appear is when there's during a lightning storm. So they said that it has something to do with lightning. But the thing is that there was no storm when I saw it, the ones that I saw. But the other interesting thing is that when I was writing Eerie, New Mexico, and my other book on New Mexico, Native American lore, skinwalkers, Kachina spirits, and dark omens, I was doing research for this book also. I wound up finding out that the UFOs isn't a new idea.
It's not a new idea.
It's centuries old. So, if you read Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Daniken, and there are mysteries all over the world that they still don't know how some of the architecture, how some of those buildings were constructed by the ancient
like you
people.
said, the pyramids, they still don't
And because we don't even have the technology today in this century to be able to reproduce what they developed, and without just quarrying stones that weigh tons and carrying them a distance of 100 miles to wherever they did their buildings, constructed their buildings, and how they cut them and set them into place so perfectly that they didn't need any mortar, and that even a razor blade, they're fit so tightly that even a razor blade wouldn't fit between them. Can you imagine that? I mean, so there are eerie stories from all over the world, including
But you
New
wrote
Mexico.
about what else in New Mexico? And you said regarding the show that was interesting because now Congress is asking for answers.
And there's plenty of information out there, and objects that have been discovered, like I said, even underwater in the ocean by underwater archaeologists.
You brought some interesting things here. Why did you
Yes.
bring some rocks to our program?
Well, since I wrote about that, about Eerie, New Mexico, and this is a piece of volcanic stone that has a design on it that was done by a shaman, and it shows a figure with the, I don't know if you could see it clearly, but it shows a figure on there that is holding a bow and arrow. So they use this to, with, whatever the spiritual chants were that they had at the time, so that they would have a good hunt. And so that this would be carried for the hunt. But then on the back side, I found that there was a symbol of what appears to be a cross and looks like a one. So I couldn't figure out what that would be.
What is it? I don't see.
It's right here.
Hold a little higher.
Yeah, right there.
Hold a little higher. Okay. It's a cross. What is it? A
It's
cross?
like a cross.
Oh, I see it. And
And a one. So what is that doing on this stone that's centuries old? I have no idea if this is 10,000 years old, which it could be. But that was one of the items. This one is an interesting rock that was done with red iron oxide, and it shows what would have been a horse.
Uh-huh. That's nice. You found that also?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that would have been, this would have been made when the Spanish colonists came in and brought their
Where did you find
horses. I found this in Las Vegas.
that? Okay. You got another.
And this is a membranous pot that was produced by the membranous Indians. It's
Hold it up a little higher.
they're being studied by still anthropologists and archaeologists are studying the membranous culture, and what I wrote about it in one of the chapters in my book, all the research that I did. But the interesting thing about this is that they produced these pots with a hole on the bottom because it was placed over the head of the deceased, male, female, or child. And so to cover their face, or they would be placed on top of their head so that their spirit could, once they left the body, could go through this hole to the afterworld. So that was eerie. The spirituality of this ancient native tribe. And
when did they do that?
During the 1000s.
And how did you discover this?
The information, research. Because the Mimbres culture has been written about and studied by anthropologists and archaeologists for quite a long time. And books have been written. But what caught my attention was the spirituality of this, and which they still are conjecturing. You know, they come up with ideas as to what they were used for and what the specific purpose was.
And this is
and it's just, they don't know exactly because I mean they can't talk to them.
and they didn't write it. They didn't write it
And
down.
they didn't write it down. I found this also, and this is if you can see that's a face, and you can see the eyes, the nose is crooked, and the
Okay.
mouth, and look at the shape, triangular. So that's an object that you find, or the representations like this are found on
Petroglyphs?
on petroglyphs that scientists can't explain what the representations were that were being done by.
You're thinking it's like an alien type of thing.
Yes. I mean, that's.
Sure.
Well, a person doesn't know. I mean.
Sure. Well, you mentioned even this summer when the Air Force pilots were testifying before Congress that they saw objects that couldn't be described.
No, they can't describe it. There have been some that are large orbs that are up in the sky, moving along, and then they stop suddenly, and then they just stay there for a certain length of time.
In New Mexico,
And they have been photographed.
there's the eerie things that happen. So do you feel that the answers are buried somewhere deep in some file cabinet?
One of the things that I read when I believe it was in my 20s, because I've always been interested in the subjects that I write about. Because I thought not only were they interesting, but I love mysteries, and exploring the mysteries further, and writing about them, and I just tell what others have stated, and that were people that were interviewed, what has been written in the past. But then you can find them in my book rather than it's different areas, where you find out.
So tell us another interesting eerie thing about New Mexico that doesn't have anything in the explanation. You said there's a blue nun?
The Blue Nun. That's a very famous story about the appearance of the interesting thing about the story is that a group of priests had come into New Mexico like in the early 1600s, and there were this tribe of they were called the Humanos, the Humano Indians, and when they saw the priests, they came up to this group from that tribe came up to them, and they knelt down. And they kissed the crosses they were carrying, and they couldn't understand why, because there hadn't been any Christians here at all. So how? And they, in their native language, they said that they had seen somebody that came and ministered among them, and taught them about the Christian faith. That's been written by many historians on New Mexico history. One of the administrators of the Spanish friars, and there was, they were establishing the mission churches back in the early 1600s, and heard these stories, and the Humano Indians described what she looked like.
Who taught them about Christianity? Somebody taught the Indians
Yeah,
before
this-
before the missionaries came.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was just this beautiful lady that would appear to them, and suddenly, and then she would just teach them and their kids about Christianity, and so, that they brushed the stories off, as being.
But you don't
just
brush it off.
Just a legend,
Yeah.
that they had it, but then they started thinking. There could be something to this, but that would be impossible. I mean, there couldn't be anything such thing happening among these Indians. But they were curious as to why they knew a lot about the church already, about their faith,
Yeah.
the faith.
And they called it the Blue Nun.
They call her the Blue Nun because she wore blue. I mean, so anyway, he decided to go when he returned to Spain. The administrator. Fray Benavides wanted to try to track the story down because in Spain he heard about this nun that was at a certain convent that claimed that she was traveling over here to this part of the world, New Mexico, and that she was ministering among the Indians. But
He found that out back in Spain.
Yes. So
But he was here firsthand. He was here firsthand. Went back to Spain to research it and
So
found
he
this
went
out.
it was in the little village called Agreda, and so he went to that village. To that convent, and it turned out that it was the Mother Superior, and she was young, and that's why they call her Mary of Agreda, because it's Agreda, Spain. So she went by Maria de Jesus de Agreda, was the name that she had chosen as a nun. And so when he spoke with her, she actually said that she had been here. And then he said, I even saw you when you were traveling. And she described the territory, the land, and the area and the Indians that she ministered among different tribes, supposedly. And anyway,
That's in your book.
that's in the book.
That's
I
in the
researched
book.
it further, and so I have to have the complete story about her and what's claimed and
That's
what the natives said.
What did you find out about the aliens in Roswell? Did you write about them in your book?
I didn't write about that as much because it's been a subject that has been covered so often, and they have a museum. I mentioned it, of course, but
How about
I wanted to cover other things that people don't
what
know
else?
little about.
Tell us. We just have a few minutes left. Tell us briefly about some other things that you
Chaco
discovered.
Canyon. Chaco Canyon in New Mexico is something that is still being studied and learned about. I wound up finding out that when the Indians that constructed those buildings, they constructed them with no windows and just entrances, and some went deeper into the ground. So when they went in there, it was pitch dark. So our archaeologists and anthropologists don't understand why.
What do
But
you think now
It was
after
the
writing the book?
spirituality. It was they believed that when you went into the ground, that you would become closer to the powerful being or beings. The other thing that they found out is that there's an overhang on one of the rock ledges that's located nearby there, where they did a drawing, and they believe that it shows a nebula in the exploding during that period of history, and scientists found out that actually did happen. But how it is that they knew about it, and how did they?
And why does the rock ledge have anything to do with it?
Nobody knows.
With the rock.
Unless it was for protection of the.
How about New Mexico's inner superstitions? Passage to strangeness.
That's all. A passage to strangeness. Chaco Canyon. There's a road that was constructed by the what is believed were the ancient Pueblo Indians that produced the buildings, but they don't know why there was a road.
Did the road go to the building?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Nazca Plains in Peru, where they still don't know why they produced such large figures that could only be seen from the sky, and the only reason, and they were only seen as to the extent of them through somebody that got in a hot air balloon back in an early time and was flying up there, and he was stunned with what he saw, because when you see them from the ground level, they don't look like anything.
But back here in New Mexico, anything
rocks.
else you'd like to share, Ray John de Aragon, about Erie, New Mexico? We've got a minute left.
So there are different areas and different subjects that I explored. I wound up writing also about the appearance of spirits and the spirituality of the Native Americans, and because they believed in life after death, and that your spirit comes back to lead you in the correct journey in your life. And that was prevalent among all the Native Americans, including the Central American Indians and the South American Indians.
How about the strangest? What's the strangest thing about New Mexico? We've got 30 seconds.
Everything. Things that I mentioned before is that scientists, when they find an object or find something that they can't explain, then they put into file Z at the museums, and that's in a box in storage that they don't even bother to look at. But there are some that are actually delving into those boxes and finding those things, and there are magazines that are being produced now that show those objects. And
File Z.
And then they conjecture as to what is this, and how could somebody 5,000 years ago to have produced something like that?
Ray John de Aragon, Erie, New Mexico. That's why we love it. We thought it was a land of enchantment. Now it's Erie, New Mexico.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being part of the program. Come back and share your wisdom, your history, and your research with us. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The New Mexico Modern Child Support Family Program works to benefit both parents for the purpose of improving children's lives. It provides the basics of child support, but goes further by helping parents step up to find better job opportunities that get them back on track to paying their monthly child support obligation. Find out how the Child Support Step Up program can help your modern family. Contact New Mexico Child Support today to learn more.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.